Picture this, on November 3rd, 2018, Cumming, Georgia, a town with a dark history that most folks don't talk about anymore. From 1912 to the 1940s, not a single black person lived in Forsyth County. They'd all been driven out in a wave of racial violence that stained the soil red. But times change, right? Or do they? On this chilly autumn night, a 40-year-old mother of 5 boys is running late to a party. Tamla Horsford, vibrant, full of life, the kind of woman who could make friends with anyone, is in her kitchen, carefully preparing a breakfast casserole for her family. She wants to make sure her husband and boys have something good to eat in the morning while she's at a sleepover. But by morning, she'd be dead. And the questions surrounding her death would echo through social media, courtrooms, and the hearts of those who loved her. Hello, strangers. Welcome back to the Strange Bar and Grill. I'm your host, JP. Today we'll be discussing the Tamla Horsford case. You probably heard about this case before, but you haven't heard me tell it, so let's go. Tamla was born in St. Vincent and Grenadines in 1978, where she lived until her family moved to the Bronx in 1989. She met her husband Leander in Florida, who had a daughter from a previous relationship, and they went on to have 5 sons together. When Horsford died, her youngest son was only 4 years old. By all accounts, Tamla was always the life of the party. She loved to laugh, to dance, to have fun. The Horsfords would move to Georgia for Leander's work, and that's where this story begins. It was supposed to be innocent enough, a football mom's sleepover. John Myers was turning 45, and she'd invite a group of women who knew each other through their son's youth football league. Pajamas, tequila, Cards Against Humanity, just grown women acting like teenagers for a night. Tamla arrived around 8:30 p.m. with a bottle of tequila from Mexico as a birthday gift. She was the only black woman at this party. 7 women and Tamla. Oh, and there were 3 men there too, including John's boyfriend, Jose Barrera. Funny thing about an all-girl sleepover having men present though, isn't it? The night seemed normal enough. They drank tequila, Fireball, Mountain Dew mixers. They watched football. They played cards and laughed. There's even a video of Tamla singing Happy Birthday with a huge smile on her face. But something went terribly wrong. On November 4th, 2018, at 8:45 a.m., John's aunt Madeline Lombardi shuffles into the kitchen to make her morning coffee. She glances out the window and sees something that makes her blood run cold. A figure in white pajamas with paw prints lying face down in the backyard, not moving. She alerts John and says, "Your island friend is laying outside and she isn't moving," which is a really weird, bizarre thing to say. Like, why did she call her island friend? It just seems weird to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Let me know. The 911 call comes at 8:59 a.m. Jose Barrera is on the line. He says, "She's not moving one bit. She's not breathing. She's completely face down in the yard. She is stiff." And he says it kind of like that. He's no emotion, no urgency, nothing. I'd be freaking out personally, but. And then something strange happens. He points out a small cut on her wrist, suggesting maybe it's self-inflicted. A woman's voice in the background speculates that maybe Tamla was pushed from the balcony. During this call, they're strangely calm. The police arrive at 9:07 a.m. The scene is not preserved. No fingerprints are taken. The body has been moved. Jose admits he touched her, checking for a pulse. The security cameras that Jose mentioned on the 911 call, their batteries were dead, so there's no footage. And here's where things start to get even darker. The family's third-party autopsy found something different than what the official autopsy states, but we'll get to that later. But the official autopsy found multiple blunt force injuries, severe injuries to her head, neck, and torso, cuts on her face, wrist, hand, and lower legs, a laceration to the right ventricle of her heart, a broken neck. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, or GBI, said a fractured second vertebrae and a dislocated right wrist. Her blood alcohol level was 0.238, nearly 3 times the legal limit. They also found traces of THC and alprazolam. Hope I said that right, but anyway, that's Xanax, an anxiety medication. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation took only 5 autopsy photos. 5. Experts say that's unusually low for a death investigation. And get this, The family's attorney wasn't even allowed to see those photos at that time. The GBI told them they're not subject to open records. And ready for this? No SA kit was done. No fingernail clippings were taken. The scene wasn't secured. Evidence wasn't preserved. The official ruling by the Forsyth Sheriff's Office? Accidental death from a fall off the balcony. But Tamla's family wasn't buying it. They commissioned their own autopsy by Dr. Waddell Shakur, a forensic pathologist, and what he found contradicts the official story in disturbing ways. First, that dislocated wrist, it was actually a compound fracture. You could see bones sticking out of the crime scene photos, because apparently they actually gave this third-party investigator access to the photos by this point. But here's the thing that doesn't make no sense. There was very little blood at the scene. How do you have a compound fracture with a bone protruding and barely any blood? Dr. Waddell had an answer. The injury was post-mortem. It happened after death. And remember that fractured vertebrae the GBI mentioned? Dr. Waddell says it wasn't a fracture at all. But here's what really raises the flag. As Dr. Waddell put it, there was no evidence of any significant injuries to the skull and bones. How do you fall from a second-story balcony and not have skull injuries? The family's attorney, Ralph Fernandez, is blunt. I know this was a homicide. The problem is, I can't pin it on anybody because I don't have a badge, because the cops are not doing their job. And then there's Jose Barrera. So 2 months after Tamla's death, he was fired from his job as a pretrial officer. Why, you might ask? He'd been using his position to access confidential files about the investigation multiple times. I wonder why. Now, while Tamla's family grieved, her best friend Michelle Graves went to war. For 3 years, she's been fighting for justice, and she's made plenty of enemies doing it. She says, I haven't been able to grieve her because I've been trying to fight for her justice for 3 years. She filed open records requests. She hounded investigators with emails and questions. She challenged the credibility of everyone at that party. She picked apart every inconsistency, every lie, every cover-up attempt. And for her trouble, she became a target. Remember when I talked about corrupt Jose Barrera, the homeowner Jean's boyfriend, who got fired for accessing the case files? Well, he didn't just look at the investigation. He accessed Michelle Graves' personal information, her address, her cell phone number, and he allegedly leaked it to 5 people. The party guests didn't just deny involvement. 7 of them actually sued Michelle for defamation. They claimed she was wrongly accusing them of murder. The case was later dismissed, but the message was clear. Stop asking questions. But Michelle didn't stop. She kept pushing, kept investigating, kept asking questions nobody wanted to answer. Like no one tried to roll Tamla over or perform CPR, not the guests, not even the police who called off the ambulance. There was no effort whatsoever done to try to save this woman's life, Graves said. But Michelle Graves noticed something else at the crime scene, something that didn't add up. First, her body position. She was found face down, completely flat. Her head wasn't turned to either side. Have you ever seen someone fall 14 feet and land perfectly face down? Even deputies at the scene were confused, with one of them saying, it just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like a nosedive. And her arms. This is where it gets even stranger. Jean and her boyfriend Jose insist both of Tamla's arms were down by her sides, palms up, when they found her. But crime scene photos show her left arm extended and bent at the elbow. Someone moved that arm. But who and why? The lead investigator, Mike Christian, initially thought she fell from the ground level, not the balcony. He even told Tamla's father this theory. Later on, he'd change his mind and say, what I should have done probably was keep my mouth shut and not spun theories. Someone probably got on him about that, so he changed his story up. Now, we can't talk about this case without talking about race. And given my recent comment section, I'm about to trigger some people. I can hear those veins swelling up in some necks right now as I speak. Tamla was the only black woman at this party in Forsyth County, a place where in 1912 every black resident was violently expelled. Even today, only 4% of the county's population is black. The investigation was handled by a sheriff who resigned from his previous job for protecting an officer who posted racist photos. The lead investigator made racist jokes about the case and referred to Tamla as the porch lady. The supervising lieutenant was hired through connections, not qualifications, or what I would call a DEI hire. Wink, wink. When the case gained national attention during the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020, celebrities like T.I., 50 Cent, and Kim Kardashian shared Tamla's story. A Change.org petition demanding justice got over 709,000 signatures. Tamla's family believes race absolutely played a role. As her father said, Tamla was actually the person that they were investigating and not the perpetrators. Sounds like they're doing that typical move out of the playbook where you take the victim and you find everything possibly wrong with them to make it feel like they don't deserve justice. Was Tamla's death investigated differently because she was black? Would a white mother of 5 falling at a party have gotten only 5 autopsy photos? Would the scene have been preserved? Would the investigation have been more thorough? Now, I can't prove it, and there's been many cases of white people whose crime scenes weren't preserved and all that, so I can't say that as evidence in this case, but we'll get to some more stuff later that might prove that to be true. But in a county with that history, with those connections, with that pattern of behavior, you have to wonder, right? Now, with all the information you just heard, let's talk about some of the red flags in this case. So, the first red flag, the men at the party. Let's talk about who was actually there that night. This was supposed to be a ladies' sleepover, remember? But there were men present, 3 to be exact. First, there's Jose Barrera, John Myers' boyfriend. Now, Jose is interesting to say the least. He worked as a pretrial officer for Forsyth County Court. But here's what you need to know about his background. He'd been fired from a previous job at the state probation office along with a female co-worker for lying, apparently about a relationship between the two of them. An assistant district attorney still called him a good guy and with a good reputation, but getting fired for dishonesty? That's a red flag. Then there's Tom Smith, husband of party guest Stacy Smith. He spent most of the night in the basement watching football with Jose. The third man, an unnamed husband who only dropped off and picked up his wife. He didn't stay. In total, 12 people were at the house. 8 women, including Tamla, 2 men who stayed, Jose and Tom, Madeline Lombardi, the live-in aunt, the one who discovered Tamla, and the one husband who just dropped off and picked up. But just to reiterate, the scumbaggery of Jose, because he's not a good guy. After Tamla's death, Jose was fired for using his position as a county employee to access confidential documents related to the investigation. He then allegedly leaked case information, including Michelle Graves' address and cell phone number, to 5 people. That's a little fishy to me. Why would Jose risk his job to access those files? Was it just curiosity? Was he trying to see if they were unto him and his friends? And was he also trying to intimidate Tamla's friend Michelle, who was asking too many questions? You let me know in the comment section. So red flag number 2, this seemingly corrupt police force. So this isn't just about who was at the party, it's about who knew who in Forsyth County's power structure. Lieutenant Andy Kalin, who supervised the case, was personal friends with Jose Barrera. And get this, Kalin had no prior police experience, but was hired directly into a high position after Sheriff Ron Freeman was elected, bypassing normal hiring protocols, including polygraphs and background testing. Lieutenant Andy Kalin was DEI. Even more troubling, Sheriff Freeman's 2016 campaign manager, Anna DeBlois, was friends with most of the people at the party. The sheriff himself had a questionable past. He'd resigned from Brookhaven Police in 2014 after being caught trying to alter personnel files of an officer fired for posting racially insensitive photos. Sounds like some heavy police corruption on that force. But let's dig into this a little deeper. So this part should make everyone mad. So let's rewind a little bit and let's dig into what I was just talking about there. So when police responded to the scene, they weren't investigating strangers, they were investigating their friends. So if you listen to the body camera audio, you can hear a deputy walking another officer through who's who. They say, "We've got some mutual friends together. I've known Jose for a while, we're friends." Another woman from the party was worried about being late to her new job. The deputy's response, "I'm sure you're good because your boss is my wife." Let that sink in. The people investigating the death were friends with the suspects. The deputy's wife was the boss of one of the witnesses. Can you investigate your friends fairly? Can you be objective when your wife's employee might be involved in a suspicious death?
911 call was a former probation officer who, at the time, worked in the county's court system. And another woman worked with an officer's wife.
I'm sure you're good because her boss is my wife. So, well, then you're more than good.
So let's get to red flag number 3, all the conflicting statements. Now, let's talk about how these witnesses' stories just don't add up. When you have 12 people at a party and someone dies, you'd expect their stories to mostly match, right? Well, wrong. The first inconsistency is the position of Tamla's body. Jean and Jose both told police when they found Tamla, both her arms were down by her sides, palms up. It's the weirdest thing, Jean said. She was face down, but her arms were down like she just face planted. But the crime scene photos tell a different story. They show Tamla's left arm extended and bent at the elbow. Someone moved that arm. But who? Here's where things get even stranger. Jose reportedly told Lieutenant Kalin on November 7th that he checked Tamla's left arm for a pulse. But when the GBI confronted him about this, he called it BS and denied ever moving her arm or telling Kalin he did. And the next inconsistency is the alleged last person to see her alive. Bridget Fuller said she was the last to see Tamla alive at 1:47 a.m. According to Bridget, Tamla was eating a bowl of gumbo and said she planned to smoke one last cigarette before bed. She said they walked to the door together as Bridget was leaving for the night. But here's the problem. Bridget's own husband contradicted her story. He said when he came to pick Bridget up, she came to the door alone. He did not see anyone else with her. He did not see Tamla. So which is it? Was Tamla with her or not? And it's such a strange thing to lie about. It sounds like, when your kids lie to you and they're just adding extra details and putting stuff in there for no reason. That's what that strikes me as. I don't know. Let me know what you all think of that. The next inconsistency is the security camera lie. On the 911 call, Jose mentioned security cameras pointed at the backyard, but suddenly those cameras had dead batteries and no footage. Jean initially told people the cameras caught Tamla's fall, but later claimed they weren't working. How are you so confident that you have the fall on tape if you didn't view the video beforehand? And then you say, oh, there was no video, all the video's gone, and the batteries are dead. I mean, it is possible. It's possible that maybe you thought you had it on camera, but then you went to go check and the batteries are dead. But I don't know, there's so much confidence in that statement, it makes me believe otherwise. And the next inconsistency is, how drunk was she really? The toxicology report showed Tamla's blood alcohol was 0.238, nearly 3 times the legal limit. That's blackout drunk territory. But multiple witnesses, including Jose and Jean, told police Tamla was happy and didn't seem overly intoxicated. Bridget Fuller explained this might be because Tamla was a seasoned drinker who could handle her alcohol, saying it would take an enormous amount to knock her on her ass. But even seasoned drinkers show signs of being drunk at 0.238. They slur, they stumble. Yet in videos from that night, Tamla appears composed, smiling, playing cards. The Xanax they found in her system was only partially metabolized, which means it entered her system moments before her death. So did she really have a 0.238 blood alcohol level? Or is that something they just added to the report? And the last inconsistency we'll discuss is the different changing theories. Remember how I mentioned the investigator initially thought Tamla fell from ground level? Well, Jean herself initially posted on social media that Tamla didn't fall from the deck. Then suddenly, the story changed to a balcony fall. Why is that? I mean, for obvious reasons, it fits a narrative of she was drunk, high on Xanax, and lost her balance and fell over a 4-foot railing on a balcony to her death. But does that make sense to you? So the next red flag would be the attempted cover-up. So I just need to be clear here. This is not a proven fact. But during the investigation, it's being reported that Jean allegedly attempted to bribe detectives with Dunkin' Donut gift cards. Now maybe she was just showing her southern hospitality, or maybe she was trying to influence the investigation. The family's attorney found something else disturbing. A potential subject handled the body as well as the evidence prior to law enforcement arriving. Evidence was disposed of and no inquiry was followed. But what evidence was disposed of? Who handled the body besides Jose checking for a pulse? We don't know because nobody followed up. Also, when the GBI investigated, they focused heavily on Tamla's husband Leander, getting search warrants for his phone and social media. But the people at the party, the ones with connections to law enforcement, they got to tell their conflicting stories and walk away. So why in the hell is the person who wasn't even at the party getting investigated? Like, how in the hell were they going to try to flip this and convict him of this crime? As far as I'm concerned, That's 11 or 12 suspects if you count the husband who dropped his wife off and just came to pick her up that are involved in this. Why go after her husband? Don't even make no damn sense. And red flag number 5 deals with the different lies that this group of friends were caught in. The GBI's investigation, while seemingly skewed, did uncover something crucial. These people were obviously lying. One woman at the party had a very interesting accessory, a necklace with Xanax in it. She told police she had severe anxiety and that her medication made it impossible for her to lie. My experience, when people say that, they're liars. Let's be honest here. She swore she understood Xanax was a controlled substance and would never share it with anyone. The GBI subpoenaed the phones, and guess what they found? The text messages proving this woman had shared drugs with friends at least twice before the party. And on the day of Tamla's death, she'd shared medication with a friend again. When confronted with this evidence, she finally admitted it. But she insisted she only shared drugs with the women she knew well. She didn't know Tamla. She says she didn't give her any drugs, but Tamla had Xanax in her system when she died. Again, it wasn't fully metabolized. Nobody knows how it got there. Nobody's admitting to giving it to her. So did someone slip Tamla Xanax without her knowledge? The woman with the drug necklace says no, but she also lied about never sharing her medication. So what else is she lying about? Tamla's family said she wasn't on Xanax. She didn't take Xanax. So someone gave her Xanax, or they slipped it into a drink of hers before whatever happened to her that night. And this brings us to the final red flag number 6, the cover-up crew. So when the GBI finally got involved 2 years later, so this is after the Forsyth Sheriff's Office basically declared this slip and fall an accident, the GBI actually investigated this case and came to the same conclusion. So 2 years later after this incident, the GBI discovered something disturbing. At least 2 people had gotten new phones. Text messages and pictures from various devices were mysteriously gone. So think about that. In a death investigation, multiple people just happen to get new phones and lose their data. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office had never asked for the devices, never downloaded the data, never subpoenaed phone records, not until the GBI took over 2 years later. But by then, whatever evidence might have existed was conveniently gone, right? Why would they keep anything incriminating on their phones after the fact? Let's just do a little recap here on the investigation that wasn't, the investigation that didn't exist. So let's be clear about what didn't happen after Tamla died. The scene wasn't treated as a crime scene. There was no yellow tape put up. The scene wasn't preserved. No fingerprints were taken. Only 5 autopsy photos were taken. No SA kit was performed. No fingernail clippings were collected. Evidence was disposed of with no follow-up. Witnesses weren't immediately interviewed, giving them an opportunity to try to make up a story, but they still failed and was mad inconsistent. Nobody attempted CPR, not the guests, not even the police. The ambulance was called off. Phones weren't collected or examined for 2 years. In May of 2021, after massive public pressure and a petition with over 700,000 signatures, the GBI concluded their investigation. Their finding: the facts and investigative findings do not support pursuit and prosecution of criminal charges. Case closed again. But Tamla's family, they're not giving up. They're still fighting. They're still seeking justice for their daughter. But what do you guys think of this case? Let me know in the comment section.